This Talking Flutes podcast is kindly sponsored by Trevor James Flutes, making life sound beautiful. You can show them some flute love by following them on Instagram at TJ Flutes, Trevor James Flutes on Facebook, and at trevorjamesflutes.com. Hello, and welcome this week to Talking Flutes Extra with me, Jean-Paul Wright. This week, I have a very special guest at the other end of this line. Ekaterina Kornishina was born in Moscow and started studying music at the tender age of only 4. In 2003, she began her flute studies at the Central Music School under Professor Yuri Dolzikov. At the age of only 13, Katya won the New Names Foundation Scholarship, and when she turned 18, received an invitation from Vladimir Spivakov to be soloist with the National Philharmonic Orchestra of Russia. In 2018, Ekaterina graduated from the Moscow State Conservatory under the guiding eyes of Professor Alexander Golishev and moved to Madrid, where she started her study at the Reina Sofia with the wonderful Jacques Zune. In 2020, she released a CD of her own arrangements for flute and piano of works by Rachmaninoff on the famous Russian music label Melody. Since the age of 11, Ekaterina had a very diverse repertoire, embracing not only classical compositions, but also jazz and contemporary academic music. But Ekaterina is not just a brilliant musician and flute player. She happens to be born in Moscow, into a family of scientists and athletes, the result of which is this lady is driven to learn more. Indeed, she gained an extra degree in psychology and maintains a huge passion, as we will hear in a moment, for its integration as an aid for musician. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is London Calling. Welcome to the fabulous Ekaterina Kornishina, who joins me today from Madrid. Good afternoon, my lady.
Thank you so much for this introduction. Hello, everyone who are listening to us. I'm a bit shy about my English, but anyway, I'm sure we're going to have an amazing conversation.
We're going to have a wonderful conversation because we had a little chat beforehand, and I find you a fascinating individual.
Thank you.
Not only so young, but you have managed to put so much together into this whole package that you're just bursting with energy trying to get this out, not only as a performer, but as a teacher and as a therapeutic resource.
I am driven in my life with only one. The most important thing is curiosity.
Yeah.
This is my my wind, and this is what makes me be what I am.
I think if anybody follows you, and you should follow her on social media, certainly on Instagram, because you see a lot of Katya. She's under Kate Cornish Instagram, is that you seem to get all angles with her. Not only the modelling side, but you get the musician side, you get the frustration side, you get the food side, you get everything. And it is, and it is an honest account of somebody that is constantly learning and enjoying.
Yes, I am, and this is one of the most important things for me in life, to be in constant learning. I cannot stop. I want to know. I want to explore the world. I cannot just I cannot put myself in the frames of being just a flute player, because I think to be a good musician, you have to explore this world in any direction, and you have to be educated well in many directions. This is what makes our profession so special.
So, tell me, what was it really like? What was it really like growing up in a family of intellectuals? And what are your first memories of your childhood?
I don't have any clear memory, but I have a clear feeling about my childhood. It was a very happy childhood. Even though I have a specific family, because my grandfather especially, he was a Paralympic champion. My grandfather and my grandmother, they couldn't hear. And also my grandfather, he was an engineer. He was building airplanes. I don't have a father because unfortunately he didn't participate in my life since I was born. But my childhood was the most happy childhood ever I had. I mean, I had only one childhood. can say compared to many of my friends. Yes, I'm a happy person because I have only happy memories, and I've learned a lot from my childhood. And like everyone who knows the principles of psychology, we kind of choose our path from a childhood. It doesn't come when you suddenly grow up and you become an adult. No, you develop yourself out of your childhood. So I was lucky in this case. I had a very, very beautiful relationship with my family, and I was always a kid who was loved and appreciated. But of course, as I was a very curious kid and many times difficult kid, it had its own consequences, and troubles, because I wanted to do a lot of things and I didn't know what exactly I want to do. I wanted to be a singer, first of all, because at 3 years old, I forced my mother to translate me all Italian operas and to read me before going to sleep. Like instead of fairy tales, I was singing, not talking, and I ended up to sing in a Bolshoi Theatre children's choir. And there was a beautiful story on the stage because I was participating in Adrienne Lecouvreur opera. I was playing a role of Amour, small Cupidon, and I got super bored because the baritone who was singing his aria, he was very boring. He was just boring singing, and it was so exhausting for me. So I started to walk during a performance. I started to walk on the historical stage of Bolshoi Theatre and being like, I'm at my place, of course, which it was a big resonance in the audience because it was like this typical video. Now, if we could have a mobile phones at that time, I would be a star of Instagram for sure. So I was like walking with these wings and the ball, and suddenly I've seen there is the orchestra sitting. I was so surprised because I didn't know that it works this way, and I truly was amazed. And I knew my role very well because I was 5, and I've seen this first flute player, and he was so nice, and he was playing a beautiful solo in this boring aria, and I just put this ball and sent arrow to him. But of course, it was like a kid ball, so nobody was hurt, thanks God. But of course, the audience, all the attention was mine. And many years later, Alexander Goloshev, he was my professor in Central Music School when Yuri Dolzhikov passed away, and after he remained being my professor in Moscow Conservatory, he told this story to a class because he was this flute player, and I was sitting in the chair and I was so shocked. This crazy girl was me. Because of course, it was like a joke that someone wanted to kill him during a performance. But after that performance, I came to my mom and I said, "Oh my God, what was that instrument? I want to try it." Yeah, and
I'm just visualizing the Bolshoi Theatre and Italian opera, and then you're walking around bored because the aria is boring, and just being in awe of the audience, and then noticing there's an orchestra actually down there.
The conductor was, what is happening? Oh my God.
What a great way in to music.
Yeah, I wanted to be a violin player, first of all, but things didn't happen because my mother didn't want me, so she was relieved.
So what did your first professor, Yuri Dolzhikov, and also Alexander Dolzhikov, what did they do for your early flute development then?
Yuri Dolzhikov, as you know, I don't know if you know, he was like a legendary professor in Russia. Denis Borodov was his student, and he still speaks about him with floating heart. And I was his last student. He was a big friend of Rampal, and he always was against this Soviet Russian way of playing flute. He was for this big sound. He learned a lot in Paris, and he made his own school in Russia. And this school now is represented by many, many great flute players. And Denis Borodov is one of them. He always say it, which is, I find very beautiful and important, because it's true that this person was extremely special, like a genius on flute. He wouldn't play though. He was genius professor. I believe actually that of course, you have to know how to do things to explain them. But to be a good professor, especially for kids and teenagers, it's like a completely different profession. To be a player and teaching, you need a completely different approach. So he wasn't showing much, but he knew how to have a special approach to everyone, even though sometimes, of course, because it was Soviet Russia, it was difficult, and it was a difficult character. I was many times kicked out from the class and screaming stupid, and the notes were like thrown on me, and something which is absolutely unimaginable nowadays. But this approach was so honest and so true, even though he was a I would say a troubled man, right? It was so true and honest to himself that many flute players very strong, and of course others weren't very strong enough, and it was difficult for them. So I can imagine that maybe half of them maybe would suffer a lot with him. But I was lucky because I had a very, I would say, strong character from childhood. So if he would tell me that I'm stupid, I would tell him, "You are stupid," back when I'm 8 years old. He would appreciate me because of this. I know this. And one of the reasons why I started to play flute and he accepted me to the class, because I was too young, because I was a singer before. He always was saying that you have to have approach of a singer when you play flute. So
absolutely agree. Yeah.
my sound was immediately good. I wouldn't play a D minor scale. I wouldn't be able to play it, but I would do it with a beautiful sound. And he would always say older, like, "Look, she comes from Bolshoi Theatre. She's singing. Look, the sound. Look." So everything was open, relaxed. And I was lucky, yeah, with this from beginning, thanks to singing and thanks to him, because of course at school was.
Are you the youngest child? I asked that.
I'm the only one. I'm a late child, as we say, but I'm the only one.
It's unusual, isn't it? Because normally, if you have a number of children, normally the last one is allowed to go in their own merry way, and they're normally the ones that are normally quite creative, can be a bit troublesome. But you being the only one, you were given a lot of freedom, weren't you?
Yeah, but I was, as my mother, she has 3 degrees different. My mother is the person who can live 3 years in a camp in the mountains without anything. And my mother, for example, last year she would spend 3 months in a boat alone in the river and feeling great. So I always had my time for myself. I was never pushed. Only with music, maybe my mother was pushing me, but the rest, in Russia we say "я принадлежала сама себе," which means that I was my own. I owned myself. I was always, since a kid, I was doing my stuff, my interests, and nobody ever would control me in terms of what I should do, what I shouldn't do. I think that's why my curiosity wasn't killed, because it can be killed by controlling.
Yeah, curiosity killed the cat. Yeah, absolutely. It's the aim of curiosity is so important, in that to know yourself as an individual, you've got to be curious. You've got to know who you are. And, again, we'll speak about this later, but it's when you can truly hear a musician that knows who they are, something special happens. And on that something special, you've spoken about a long conversation that you had with Emmanuel Pahud when you were 16, which was a defining moment. Without giving us too much information, what did he tell you?
No, I can. It was beautiful because Emmanuel, he was playing a concert with Moscow Virtuosi Chamber Orchestra under Vladimir Spivakov. And Vladimir Spivakov, I was in his foundation, and he saw a lot of potential in me, so he introduced me to Emmanuel, and he wanted him to listen to me. And we had just a private session with Emmanuel, and it was a beautiful experience because I started to play him Poulenc Sonate, and I played, I swear to God, 15 minutes, and the rest, like maybe 2 hours, we were just talking. I didn't play more. And it wasn't about playing. It was about the kind of a conversation we are having now with you. It was important for me to ask him questions like, what is to be a musician and not to be a flute player. Because of course he told me, on the beginning, like, you should do this, you should do that, you should play this phrase like this. You need to, at the end he told me that I need to learn styles and to play in different style. But yes, I'm talented, just I need to practice and to learn. So basically the whole conversation, the rest of conversation was about life, about what is to be a musician. And I was curious. I was this kid, I was 16, and I was asking him, do you think it's possible to have a career without winning a competition? Because I have a very, very particular opinion on competitions, and I'm fighting against this concept that I have to participate, and I don't want to participate in this because I don't believe in a judgment in general and in a competition the way competitions exist for music. And of course everybody still go to competitions because it's needed, but I'm fighting against that. I am not participating on purpose, which it makes my career very difficult. This is my path. So my concern at that time already was about this, and I asked him, is it possible? And he told me, of course it's possible. You just need to have your conductor who would play with you, right? Like a soloist or whatever you want to do. It's still a matter of luck at the end. We cannot deny life is not only what you do, it's also luck. It's easier, I think, to live with this concept than to try over control things, which is not possible in life, right? Because there are many people who do the same things. I know so many talented flute players, my friends, who are such great players, and they don't have job, and they won these competitions, they participated. So I was curious, and I was asking him about this, and we had a long conversation, and basically he cheered me up. He told me, of course. But of course, it's a very difficult path. If you choose it, you will struggle, but you will also, it's not easy path to win a competition. Nobody say that, of course. But it's possible. Anything is possible in life.
Yeah, I suppose what competition does is gets you known, but as we all know, there's lots of politics in competitions, and there's normally the same people that do the same competitions, and it doesn't guarantee you a future.
But it doesn't guarantee you anything, and it just kills your nerves. At the end, if we speak about basics of psychology, it's the worst thing you can do with a musician, to compare. You can compare yourself only with yourself, no one else. It's not only in music, but in sport. But in sport, at least we have particular measures for, you jumped far, you won. But music, it's a matter of taste.
Absolutely.
Also cuisine. I am absolutely away from that. It's not that I'm not an activist. I'm not against. I'm not going to agitate people.
Yep.
But I feel just so out of this plate myself.
I love the analogy of food, because if in a competition you all had to play the middle movement of the poulenc, and you all played it, so everybody played the notes because everyone's a good player. Some people would play it with a spicy feel. Some people would play it with a fish and chip feel. Someone would play it with a tapas feel. Someone would play it with a chili feel.
Absolutely.
And we all have different preferences.
Absolutely.
And it's...
I like to eat without fork. I like to eat without fork and knife. I don't care about perfection, clear plate, and that it has to be beautiful. I do not care. I like to eat. So, it can be whatever.
But that's what makes things exciting, when there isn't prescriptive. And when you have the freedom to actually explore within the note. So you had that wisdom from Manuel, and then you moved.
It inspired me a lot.
And then you moved to the phenomenal Jacques Zoon. You see,
it was idea of Emmanuel Pahud, because it was a beautiful present from him. I received a letter he played a concert, and after I received the letter from a secretary of Vladimir Spivakov, where Emmanuel wrote me, every professor in every country I should consider to study with.
Wow.
And I still have, of course, this letter at in the frame at my place in Moscow. But the only person I didn't know there was Jacques Zoon, because in Russia he's not super known.
Wow.
He's not. And I didn't. I remember my feeling like, okay, this I know. Yeah, okay, I know everyone. I went to many master classes. I love all of these professors, but I never felt my person, like in terms of like my father, which I didn't have. I always wanted to have like a Buddha who I would just adore fully, and it just didn't happen connection, like this with other professors, which are still amazing, and they gave me so much in any master classes. Jacques Zoon was the one who I was like, who is this? We laughed with him many times about this because I didn't have any idea. After many years, because after my career was going a bit different way, because I started to work in the orchestra as a principal flute, and I was totally a green girl, I don't know if you say that in English, but I didn't have any experience. I wasn't able to be a first flute at 18 years old. Of course not. You need to have nerve. You need to know. I was talented, but I wasn't ready. Technically, I needed to study more. And after this, I worked 3 years in this orchestra, and my career was a bit. I started to live a life of a person who is working, every day in the orchestra, and it's more like a job. It's nothing about art. And I was too young for that. And I was surrounded by 40 years old men who were always hating their job, and all the conductors were coming. I would start to be like this because, of course, you are influenced by your surrounding. And at some point, something just clicked because I was like 22. I was like, no, something's going wrong. Something's going wrong. I'm not happy. Yes, I have a great position, and many people didn't like me because of this, of course. But it's nothing what I want from life. Like nothing. I don't want to live that life, and no money can buy that. No money. So it happened so accidentally that I had to leave orchestra because of some personal problems also. And it was like a blessing. At the beginning I was worried, but at the end it was blessing because I wanted to move on. I started to do a solo career. I mean, I don't like to say I started to do a solo career. I'm not a solo flute player. I'm nothing like this. I'm just a musician. I love to do everything what is possible. So I started to participate in many projects. Mainly at that time, I started to play a lot like a soloist, and not only in Russia, but in France, in Germany. But still, I wasn't satisfied. I still felt always that I lack something. I cannot express myself well in flute while I'm playing flute. I didn't know what was that repertoire or the instrument. Something was wrong always. I wasn't feeling good. And accidentally, I just got into Jacques Zoon class. It was funny because 1 month before I wasn't accepted to Paris Conservatory because my boyfriend was living in Paris, and I thought, okay, I want to live in France because France is my favorite country and my favorite language. Of course, I love Sophie Cherrier, I love Philippe Bernol. They're absolutely outstanding people and musicians. I wanted to study, but they didn't take me in Paris Conservatory. And I thought, I swear to God, I thought that I played the best audition in my life. I went out from the stage and I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. And I wasn't taken. They didn't take me into the conservatory. 1 month later, accidentally, I come to Madrid because I knew there's scholarship. I couldn't afford to study in Geneva with Jacques. So I just wanted to try because this school, Reina Sofia School of Music in Madrid, they offer scholarships for living and for grant for studying. And the school is outstanding itself. And the country also, sunny and nice weather. So like, why not? And I have to tell you, I played so bad. Audition. And I was sure nobody will take me. And he took me in his class, and I was his first ever Russian flute player in the class. I couldn't believe it happens because, of course, at that time I already knew who is Jacques Zoon. And after a few months working with Jacques, he became for me not just an amazing flute player, musician, person to be orientated on. He became like how you say that when you go to India for Buddha schools, Buddhism schools.
A guru.
Yes, I would say.
Yeah.
Not only in music, but in life, because Jackson is a very special person. And his approach to life, to people, to everything fascinated me. He's for me like still a fairy tale, like a puzzle, which I'm trying to put together to understand him. And I asked him a few months after, Maestro, why can I ask you? It's really, I want just to understand this world, and I want to know why did you take me? Because I played so badly. You did play bad, but I've seen the talent. For me to hear these words after studying in Russia, where we are seeking for perfection, which is not bad. It's just another side of the coin, you know. For me, it was to hear this was something blew my mind.
But don't you think that's the way the world is that technical perfection, even though it's virtually impossible to actually reach perfection, because perfection is a measure that each of us have on an individual thing. But have you ever been moved to tears by technical perfection, or have you been moved to tears by something that has got you inside, some slow music that has sort of suddenly sort of captured you?
No, but when you see technical perfection, you just have another kind of emotion which comes to you. You start to feel more low energy feeling, like it's like African rhythms, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, when we speak about heart and intellect music, which represents this aspect, it goes to high energy, if I may say so, when it goes through different parts of the body, I would say. You have to be perfect technically to be able to transmit something which is not about perfection.
Yeah.
It's a paradox.
I mean, there are some musicians or flute players or musicians that are very robotic that I personally struggle to have any connection with, but yet there's something that it takes a special musician to be able to sort of open me up. I'm getting on in life, and I've heard enough musicians now, and I know what moves me and what doesn't move me. And playing fast, you go to any flute convention and everyone's playing the same thing, fast, loud. When I hear somebody, and it can just be 5 or 6 bars, it can just be magic. And there's just something there that is greater than the dot, the note. And that moves us that segues us on to something that is very important to you, because not only is music important to you, but life is important. And the process of life and how we struggle with the concept. Each and every one of us has, our own struggles, and it could be personal, it could be family, it could be the inner voice that's talking to us. And being musicians, I think we have a rough deal. Because let's look at sport, for example. There's an outcome, there's a goal. As you said, if you could be a long jumper and the goal is to jump further than everybody else. So I understand why sports psychologists actually have a purpose, because they can almost mind map you into making you feel certain ways when the pain barrier comes, to be able to go through that pain barrier. So with sport, there's an outcome. But with music and performance, there rarely is a win, unless it's a competition. And then that's based, as we said, on other judgments. So are we sort of doing the music and the creative arts just an injustice by not being open about this? And the fact that so many musicians struggle inside.
I think the answer to that is a very simple thing, because musicians and artists are always representations of the society.
Yes. That is so true.
It's true. And, just before starting our conversation, I was reading an amazing article by Russian psychologist. I will tell you the name of the article, which fascinated me. That's why I decided to read it. Why humans in 21st century are living in emotional capitalism.
Ooh. Now that is a title, that isn't it? Yes.
That's interesting. Emotional capitalism. What do you think about this? And of course, it's so important if we're talking about art and artists and about what we represent nowadays. If psychologists are already talking about emotional capitalism, which is, of course, a consequence of society and the consequence of capitalism in the world, what do we want from musicians? Because musicians are there just to mirror the world. That's why I know many musicians who are trying to be non-political, or not being in like active in other aspects of life. But how it's even possible? Because what is art? We are a mirror of what happens in the world. And to expect from competitions to even, I have to tell you, I don't even understand why competitions exist. It's not a competition. You may call it, I don't know, festival or whatever. Competition shouldn't exist. I am not afraid to say that, and I don't want to participate. I was trying to participate. I was never accepted to any competition. And I know what people may think about me, saying like, oh yeah, she wasn't accepted. That's why she's saying this. But this is not true. I just realized at some point that the path everybody go, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't mean it's bad or good, but it's nothing to do with this idea of competition itself. We just have to do it. But as many great artists who were creating Baroque epocha, which they didn't know that they're creating Baroque epocha, right? Mm-hmm. Or Classicism after Baroque. They just were going against what was happening. What I'm trying to say is that I truly do not believe this is anymore the way to explore a real artist. If, of course, it's a wish for people to find something beautiful and to be connected with the world, to have this beauty, to be able to observe the world. It's another psychological problem, which is we are eaten by the world. So it's very difficult to explain to many people because 60-70% of the world, they don't know even that they have a disease, psychological disease, mm-hmm. right? Not disease, but illness. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for many people, when I say that I hate competitions and I don't want to participate, they have their story in their mind. Yeah, she wasn't accepted, or whatever the cliche way of thinking is. But I just don't like it. I don't think it's the way.
Do you think that's because it's very prescriptive, and you and your personality, you are inquisitorial, you are curious, and prescription puts you in a box, and whilst you're willing to accept that in certain environments, to be true to yourself and to what you are, you need to be allowed to be free of that.
Absolutely. I am in the position now where I want to take a break from everything for maybe a year, because I'm just so lost thanks to COVID, thanks to the situation. I just feel a bit lost, even with myself, because I feel that it's all wrong around me. I feel that I don't relate to a flute world, even though I love flute and I love music, but I don't relate to this idea of what is to be a flute player. I don't believe in this idea of competitions, and the last thing I want to say that it's bad. Many people love it, I guess, and they like to be in this business, right? But I just felt strongly that I am not. It's just against my nature. It is. What is my nature and where I will end up? Let's see. We all gonna see that at some point. I'm curious. I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. But it's something which I feel is wrong.
But when you're speaking to all your artist friends, and you don't just have musician friends, you have musicians in all the creative arts, because to be truly creative, there's got to be almost, I'm saying it hasn't got to be, but there is almost a dysfunction in that person because they're seeing, they're hearing, they're witnessing things that are different. And that's what makes them special. And when you're sat around, I mean, you must have some great conversations with your friends, but when you're sat around talking about meanings, burnout, lack of creativity in the world, as you say, creative capitalism, musical capitalism, the fact that you have to be put on a pedestal, otherwise you're not going to win. Where do you think the biggest issue with creatives is in getting that motivation or that willingness to try and be different? Because it's very hard in this day and age, especially with the last 12 months with COVID, to be different, because you've almost got to accept the norm to be able to move through this next period to then escape the other side.
I think the first step would be stop to wish to be different, because we are not different. It's a paradox again. We are different and we are not. As soon as you have a wish to be different, something is wrong. Mm-hmm. As soon as you want to be like everybody, something is wrong. You shouldn't have any wish. It's maybe a scary thing to say, a horrible thing to say, but you just have to exist. Life happens to you, not you are happening to life, I believe.
But sometimes you can give a little key. You could speak to somebody, just like Emmanuel spoke to you, yeah. And they have this little key. They have this little key and they open something within you.
Absolutely. But it happens so that I have just really few friends musicians. I maybe just didn't meet these people yet, but I wish I will in our musical business, but I cannot talk to musicians. Many of them, and all my friends are painters or cinema directors or poets or writers or bankers, or it's not a, appeal. I'm not saying it should be like this. It just happened to me that I don't have friends musicians.
But does that have the benefit of you having wider experiences in so many different areas that when you do play music, you can draw from the visions of a cinematographer has. You can draw from what they see. From an artist, they see things different to musicians. Do you feel as though you can draw from what you learn from them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot explain why. And the beauty of this, more and more I start to explore in the musical world people who are like this, but it's very rare to me. And this is what is upsetting. But of course, when I talk to them, or when I talk to my friends who are not musicians, to be able to express this afterwards, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world. Even though I struggle with flute, I see how my friends are expressing themselves beautifully and more freely, because to be a flute player is a very difficult thing in terms of we don't have such a big repertoire and we don't have many keys to express ourselves on flute, which makes it very hard to be a good flute player, almost impossible. Not only because of repertoire, it's not about even personalities. I'm fighting myself all the time because I have too much my ideas, and I should pay more attention to what composers say many times. But I many times lack playing flute, this freedom of expression of cinema or literature or...
Yeah, it's quite easy to be envious of someone that can look through a lens and just visualize and bring that over to the audience by the visual. We rely totally on the auditory, although the visual happens if you're playing in front of them. But to read a good story and to have that ability to script certain words that just get to you. And that is hard as a musician, isn't it?
Of course, it's one of the hardest things and one of the most beautiful things, because I think, and many of my friends who are not musicians think that music is a perfection of art, because more perfect than any other art, because when you listen to music, that it shouldn't be programmed. Actually, we believe with my friends that words are killing music. It's a horrible thing to say. Songs, program, it all kills the spirit of music, because the beauty of music is when you hear it, whatever you hear, you have your own trip. You have your own trip. Because when you see, I don't know, Buñuel or Godard movies, Lars von Trier, you see what the person sees. You are having a trip with someone. But when you listen to music, no one can ever share it with you. Such an intimate and special thing. So as soon as you have words in music, you already are sharing someone's idea or someone's feeling, which is of course also beautiful. In my case, for me, the problem is repertoire. It's very hard to do something deep and beautiful out of pieces which were mainly written for competitions, for flute competition. The most beautiful and profound music, right? Which was created out of expression, but
life experience is a big factor in how we perform. Otherwise, we just see the note. And when I was 17, I was once asked by a professor, "Have I ever had a girlfriend?" And I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Have you ever been in love?" And I went, "I don't know." And he said, "That's why you can't play this piece properly, because you have to know what the word means, what love means inside." And he said, "Also, you also need to know what it's like to lose love, because you need to understand emotions. And emotions are huge, great things, not only for us as human beings, as a sentient being, but also our need to convey whatever we're trying to convey to an audience." And that's why I think you will probably find it, a lot of music, too prescriptive, because your life learning so far has been so wide that you probably really want to you really want to portray emotion. And sometimes you have to play it this way.
Oh, this is my biggest fight now, because all my life I was told how to play. All my teachers were showing me how they play, and there was nothing about what I can do about it, and how I was never helped to grow my own personal approach to music, whatever it is, or Gavotte de Lully or Prokofiev Sonata. But sorry, this is a very beautiful example you told when you were 17 years old. If I would be your teacher, I would ask you, have you ever experienced love? And I'm sure you did when you were 17, because love is not limited to be experienced just with a girlfriend.
Absolutely.
Love has such many forms, and can be your mother, your brother, your cat, just the world. You can love the world. There are many people who, I don't know, they're virgin at 40 and they still are able to love. So I wouldn't say this as your professor. With my students now, for example, it's a very interesting trip, because I'm trying to kind of grow their love to flute, not to perfection, but to music and to the instrument. And I can feel how my love is growing with them. I'm sure you could play this piece. I'm sure you could.
Yeah, I could, but it was a long time ago. But it was interesting. The reason I bring that up, because you're exactly right. When we all have measures, and it could be whether I'd been loved, I actually loved my dog, my mum, my dad, all that time, but it wasn't put to me like that. And then loss, I've lost a pet, I lost a grandparent. It could have been, there are measurables. And I think this is where, teachers and professors, we could use different phrases and different uses of language to get emotions out. Because let's face it, you feel constrained by being told how to play things. And to you, what is freedom? As in freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of mind, in a musical context. Otherwise, we could go off on a big tangent here.
For me, freedom is a discipline. It's a paradox.
Do you know, I can understand that. I can understand that, yes. So freedom to you is to have discipline.
but not this discipline when you have to do things,
No.
because there are big difference, which I want to do things, or I need to do things, or I have to do things. I am reading now an amazing book written by Russian guy. He was just very interested in this Japanese concept of ikigai.
Oh, ikigai, yes. Yeah.
You know what is
Yes.
ikigai? So this is what I mean. You don't force yourself to do, but you just do it, like Miyazaki. This guy, just if I don't know if our listeners, they know this concept, but I can express it very fast. Everybody know Hayao Miyazaki. This guy draws 24 hours per day. He sleeps 5. He has meetings. He has, I don't know, Oscar. He just draws all the time. After he went on his pension, the first thing he went to do, drawing. Not because he forced him to do that, because he cannot live without this. He actually, that's why in Japan there's such a big percent of people who are living till 100, because they are driven by their ikigai, which is the purpose of their existing, their
DNA,
the thing like why they are in the world, and they do one job every time, every day, all their life, happily, and not in a rush. This is the most important thing, because the book is interviews of these people who are living in this town where they live until 100. They all are just calmly doing every day the same. And there's one very famous sushi maker in Japan, also ikigai. He has his sushi place in the, I don't know, in the metro or something like this. There are only 10 places.
This is the a very old man that is very grumpy as well.
Yes, and he has 3 stars of Michelin, and he doesn't care about that. He just makes his sushi, and he wants to make them every day better and better. It's such a different approach to life in terms of Russian way of living, European, right, or American. It's just like the opposite. I don't say it's good or bad, but we need to know this. We need to, because I'm searching my ikigai. I cannot say flute is my ikigai. I love flute, I love music, but I don't know. It has such many forms of what is. I feel I'm lost. I feel that I have all my troubles, my doubts, because I'm just not focused on something which has love. And it's because I focus on many things, which is another part of the medal. The world is a paradox. Everything is paradoxical. Just it's so beautiful to explore that.
And how do you're talking about taking a little bit of time off to try and find your ikigai, or to try and find what is your calling, what is the thing that is going to drive you from a happiness base. How would you do that? Would you go into retreat for 6 months, into a retreat for a year? Would you go and just go walking, just be with your inner thoughts? Where would you, because I would imagine your mind, it's the first time we've spoken, I would imagine your inner voice is constantly chattering, constantly talking at you. So how would you find that dialogue where you say, we agree?
It's very interesting what you're saying, because it's one of my latest eureka's about myself, is that I'm actually a great person to talk with. Because I usually talk with books I read. I always talk to my friends or to someone. I always want to know someone's opinion. But suddenly I realized that I never have a dialogue with myself, like a dialogue.
Really?
Not
wow.
Never. Because I love people so much. I just want to know what people think, that I totally forget many times what I'm saying. And I suddenly, I feel like, oh my God, I can talk to myself. I can speak with myself. That's interesting. And it's an absolutely new concept for me. So I'm a bit getting used, and I'm a bit scared, because I'm afraid I can't get on social totally, because it's, what do you need? You just talk.
I think most people have that inner voice going on. I have, because I meditate. I'm a long time meditator. So I meditate for an hour in the morning, and I do it in the evening. but I always start with a mantra is that I am not my thoughts. My thoughts are impermanent. Because sometimes my thoughts were used to sort of drive me, and I'd start to focus on my thoughts, which are an impermanent part of that process.
But is it the same what I mean? Because it's not, of course, I have a constant noise in my brain, like everyone, right? But when you meditate, you stop the noise.
No, because I think it's virtually important. Very rarely can I have a zero.
Or you observe
yes,
how it goes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I observe and push away. Yeah.
But what I mean by talking to myself is to be conscious. I ask myself a question and I answer it. Like if my friend would ask, this is kind of a conversation I now trying to, it's in a way meditation. Actually, this is so interesting. If you meditate, music is a meditation.
Yes.
As soon as you do mistakes, as soon as you fail, you forget the text or whatever happens on the stage, which is unexpected. Many people find that it means that you are just not focused. But it's not the focus when you are tensely focused. It's when you let it go, when you trust your body. It just has to. And in my case, when I perform, it's always a meditation. Not always happens well, but it's normal, I guess.
Yeah, for me, I live very much in the present moment. So that's how meditation for me is easy, and I can meditate doing many things. And it's sort of sorted me out from my youth. But it's interesting. You have a conscious dialogue.
Because I try to meditate. I train that. I am a very impatient person. This is this is my problem. There's always another side. I'm super impatient, and for me, meditation is a challenge, of course. I want to do, I need to have action, but it's beautiful. And observation, now I'm taking courses of photography. I just suddenly felt I just want to do something interesting new. And it's beautiful because one of the lessons which I had was just you spend the day like a homework observing. And this is exactly the type of a conversation I started to have with myself. Like,
if you're going to do a conscious dialogue rather than a conscious subconscious dialogue, isn't it amazing when the conscious that you're talking to speaks back? You get that voice
horrible.
back.
It's scary.
Don't you find that this journey that you're on, this unlocking that you're on, your calling could be to come back to the very profession that you are going to take time out, because all creatives need this passion that you've got, this energy you've got, and this therapy, because ultimately musicians need to unload. Because as we know, psychologists, they have to be able to unload on other people, because otherwise they're taking on the transference from all their patients. Don't you think there's something there that you can create this sort of place? Because creatives need to be able to speak. And you say you speak a lot to non-musicians, and I understand that. But in that process, you're actually offloading, aren't you? Because you're offloading ideas, creative thoughts, feelings, and it's almost therapeutic in itself. But musicians don't do that. They go for a drink afterwards and have a little chat. And
I do that too. I love wine. I love to have drinks after, but I love to have drinks with people who like not just drinking and to have little chats, but to have profound conversations, of course. And for me, it's crucial. Yeah, this is the most beautiful part of any dinner or any drinks. I suffer now behind this artistic vision of life. I suffer basic problems, lack of money, lack of work, lack of concerts. That's why it's so maybe big, my opinions on that. Like they're, I would say, huge, right? Just they are opinions, but what is this opinions if I cannot integrate them in the real world, right? This is what I do not do yet. And I love to talk. I love to speak with different people. But this is what I'm talking about when I'm trying to find my ikigai. I cannot. I know that I know a lot already, and I know I will know even more and more and more. I just don't know yet how to integrate it. And yeah, I don't know, but of course I struggle with many,
But
human problems like everyone.
But I'm sure people listening to this podcast can hear similarities with so
I
many,
hope so.
but not only with themselves, but so many famous and well-known artists, performers over the centuries that have struggled with exactly what you're saying you're struggling with. And
Yeah.
society is it's sort of closing in this expansion of the web and everything getting smaller, or getting smaller with communication. It's actually closing in rather than expanding.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will find your ikigai. I'm sure
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll find it, but it will probably come at a very profound moment. You'll be lying in the bath somewhere, and something will happen. You'll have this Buddha experience. Instead of sitting under a tree for a long time, you will have this experience that will it will present itself, and it will fundamentally give you that line. And I think you being you, I think you would take that as a line and you would develop it not only for yourself, but for the benefit of others. And this is not Katya speaking about herself. This is about Katya's frustrations with society and musicians and music, and the fact that music is for all and it shouldn't be as prescriptive. And I'm sure if you listen to David Guetta's Titanium, you'd get a trip off that, just as if you would listen to someone playing the Poulenc Sonata, if it really moved you. And yeah, I think that once that line in the sand is done, I think you're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you. Now, for example, this conversation now is also a beautiful miracle, in this day, because I feel so connected to the world having conversations like this. Maybe this is my ikigai. I love to speak with people, and I love to observe the beauty of others' thoughts. And you are so helpful with just with your even smile here, like how we met, how we started to speak. We never talked before, like a few times in Instagram maybe, but this is such a beautiful world, even a virtual world, which connects us, because we also often we blame things and we forget. And of course, yes, we all struggle, and if there are listeners who can relate to me, everything I was saying now, it's a total truth. And I know there are people who relate a lot to this, and what I would like to wish everyone is just leave and explore, not have any prejudices or expectations, because this is what ruins your personality, and it ruins your ability to observe how beautiful is this world.
Well, I think we need another podcast, because we can have because we're on the same lines here. The paradox of positive thinking. We can have this great discussion on that another time.
I would love to about anything, because it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Really, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for invitation and for this minutes minutes of my life.
No, as I said, you are such a fascinating person. And I discovered you on social media, and your Instagram account, it shows you as you. There is no edges. It's just Katya. And it just shows you enjoying life, and also as a musician and as a flute player. And in being able to speak to people like you are today, people know that, yes, you're a very talented person, but also in being a talented person and being willing to explore, that has its own issues. And with that issues is in feeling lost, feeling burnt out. That is normal. And I think it's important that people like you can speak to people and say, don't worry.
Exactly. No, this is what I want to say. You're absolutely right. Basically, just don't worry. Don't worry. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. I don't want also to say, be this fake positive. and let's just live our life.
And what a great place to finish. Oh, Ekaterina Kornishina. Oh, you've been so sweet. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you. I really hope I talk to you again. This is what
I will make sure.
Great.
Katya, take care.
Thanks.
And thank you everybody for listening to this week's Talking Flutes Extra. May your coming week be pleasant. May your coming week be joyful. And may your low B be particularly in tune. Goodbye. Talking Flutes and Talking Flutes Extra are podcast productions by the Trevor James Flute Company. For more information, visit trevorjamesflutes.com.